Welcome to Family Law Fridays. My name is Hillary Tabone, Legal Administrator at Florida Women's Law Group. This will be broadcast every Friday at 10 a.m. live here on Facebook. This is designed to be a resource for all women with any type of family law issue. We generally have a topic that we believe is relevant to current situations within the family law arena, but please reach out to us via phone or messenger if you'd like to submit questions to be addressed during these webinars. Today's topic is a discussion of signs and risks for your partner's mental health. What are your options when dealing with PTSD, depression, and anxiety during quarantine? Our host is Heather Quick, founder and CEO of Florida Women's Law Group, which is a family law firm that advocates for women in Jacksonville, Florida. The firm educates and empowers women on their rights in the law so they can find the strength to endure the process and end up better financially and emotionally. Heather has been a licensed Florida attorney for the past 20 years, with the majority of her practice over the years being in family law. Our guest panelist today is Elizabeth Gaynor. She is a board-certified counselor specializing in providing spiritually integrative psychodynamic counseling to individuals experiencing depression, anxiety, trauma, loss and grief, transitional issues, and crisis of meaning in life. Her approach helps clients identify what is not working in their lives and enables change of destructive emotional patterns, clearing the way for individual growth and adoption of new, more effective life skills. Please join me in welcoming Heather Quick and Elizabeth Gaynor.
Good morning, everyone. And Elizabeth, thank you so much for being our guest today.
It's my pleasure. Thank you for inviting me.
Absolutely. There's so much going on right now. And I think more than ever, people are really craving, and especially women, because that's the population we primarily serve, craving information and guidance in these unprecedented times. And we have the, so many women let us into their lives and share their problems with us, their concerns, their issues, as I know you do. And what we have seen really very in an exponentially different proportion than prior to this pandemic are the issues of the mental health that are really affecting families. Yeah. And so many women are reaching out to us because one, they're looking for help, and they don't necessarily need divorce, but they need help, really family law, help with their family. How do I deal with this issue?
Yeah.
And they're not really, we have been able to find some solutions for them, but that aren't necessarily divorce, because that is a long-term solution, really doesn't address the crisis they're in. So yeah. Some of the things that, as Hillary said, we're going to talk about today are issues that we have really heard about and trying to meet the needs of our clients on those issues. So I would like to ask you, because from your mental health perspective, and for those women watching that either they specifically are dealing with this or know someone and or by your definition will help them with it, could you define PTSD?
Okay, well, there's a lot of things going on all at once right now. And as with any crisis situation, things that have been simmering underneath the surface or floating along just fine have been completely blown out of the water and exacerbated by these situations. We've got people under financial stress, losing jobs, wondering about taking care of employees if they own a business, worrying about elderly parents. It's just, there's no end to the stressors that people are under. And so if you take a situation where somebody is already experiencing a mental wellness issue like post-traumatic stress disorder, like tendency toward depression or anxiety, which is, as I'm sure you already know, and anyone watching already knows, it's the common cold of mental wellness. The majority of people will experience at least one major depressive episode in their life. So there's not to say that there's anything wrong with anybody who experiences that. However, that said, it is, I am getting a lot of clients who had been doing, just fine, who are going into somewhat of a crisis because of the change situation. To your direct question about PTSD itself, I can give the DSM, which is the official American Psychiatric Association definition of post-traumatic stress disorder. However, when we're dealing with individuals who are perhaps in a situation where, like you said, divorce is a long-term solution, but perhaps it's a relationship that's been somewhat dysfunctional for a period of time. And there may be underlying issues of existing post-traumatic stress disorder that can be exacerbated. So the symptoms are brought to the forefront and are really playing out in the relationship. Some symptoms of PTSD include hypervigilance, where you really believe someone is out to get you. So if you are in a relationship where your partner is stressed as well, and you have symptoms of post-traumatic stress disorder, you may take that, what may have been on the level of a 2, you may be interpreting that on the level of a 15, and vice versa. So that if the partner has those symptoms and you're reacting at a 2, they're taking it at a 15, it exacerbates the stress in the relationship. One thing that is I don't want to say a myth, but the lay people don't necessarily understand that a lot of the symptoms with post-traumatic stress disorder, anxiety, depression, personality disorder, bipolar disorder, a lot of these symptoms dovetail. And in a therapy situation where you are being diagnosed over a period of time, so that a therapist or psychiatrist can determine the best course of action. To the average person, when we're going about our day-to-day lives, it's not really necessary to diagnose it. It's just a matter of recognizing the symptoms and how do I best deal with this for myself, and also recognizing it in someone who I am under quarantine with, and how do I best interact with that person. Does that make sense?
It does. And, I want to go back a little bit to the hypervigilance. Just what would be something we would maybe see that, because I'm not sure, like I have my idea of what that would be, but I'm sure it can manifest itself in any way, because you could be hypervigilant, I guess. Now, this is my, non-medical input, but could that be, since we are talking right now within the pandemic, because I'm sure there could be so many things, but I see potentially as with the germs, the spread, to then turn yourself into hypervigilant about, would that be something we would see it manifest itself in possibly?
There could be that. And then what I'm seeing quite a bit of is as we're in this quarantine period, we are all of us are grieving. Also, we are grieving the loss of, I don't know about you ladies, but I want my life 4 weeks ago back. And excuse me, and things are going to play out the way they're going to play out. However, we're all going through some sort of grief, and we've all been traumatized, and I don't use that word lightly, to a certain extent, whether we have someone who is ill or not. Like getting back to what I was just saying earlier about people who are concerned about, am I going to be able to make my mortgage payment in 2 months? Am I going to be able to buy food for my family in the next few months? Or if I own a business, I'm responsible for 500 people. How am I going to make sure that I'm doing the right thing by them? So what I'm seeing a lot of is not necessarily, and this is just from my little microcosm of my practice, I'm seeing this lack of options playing out in tapping into earlier experiences where someone's lack of options have played out, where perhaps they have been in a situation where their life options have been reduced, and this isn't something that they decided to do. They've been thrust into a new life that they didn't choose, and this is tapping into the feelings they had 20 years ago when such and such happened. Does that make sense? So perhaps
It does. It brings back feelings of a prior, maybe trauma or significant event. And then
yeah,
are they having trouble distinguishing that
yes,
are now versus back then?
right. Which intellectually makes, yeah, of course. Well, that happened 20
Right.
years ago. This is now, but that's not how our brains work. And we get into our amygdala, which is our lizard brain that's very primitive, and our cognitions that we have on a normal basis are simply, the quick and dirty is they're just not working, and we're operating from a very primal level. So the challenge is, how do I slow that down so that I can fire more effectively on all cylinders than letting my lizard brain take over?
Now, from your perspective, so, and then I'll talk about what we've seen for some legal options other than divorce, because we're talking, how do we address some short-term crisis? So I think there's going to, I'm sure a lot of individuals are seeing a wide range. Mm-hmm. So let's talk about the woman who is really not sure what to do because she's seeing behavior, mm-hmm. and when to know this has gone too far. Like, I need to take some type of action because maybe my partner, my husband, my child, but we're mostly talking about, within the adult relationships, but at maybe they need some mental health intervention, something to help us, that I think maybe some signs and symptoms of, and, using layman's terms, but maybe that they are, whether, I don't know if it's hallucinations or psychosis, what you would consider that signs where these women, all right, you probably can't handle this on your own and need to reach out, mental health lawyer, somebody who can get you connected with where you need for your husband.
Right. Okay. Well, one thing that's come about because of this COVID-19 situation, as everyone's aware, HIPAA is a huge thing. And under normal circumstances, therapists are, unless you have taken great measures, and they can be a little bit costly on the end of the therapist, doing telemental health can be cost prohibitive. And unless you've had the training and the certification, it's not allowed because of HIPAA. Under this circumstance right now, therapists, and I can't speak to different insurance companies who will reimburse, but therapists are now ethically allowed to meet with clients via Zoom, via Facebook Messenger, FaceTime, all of these things that were completely off the table prior to this. The gates are wide open because thankfully the powers that be have recognized that people are needing mental health counseling, therapy. It doesn't mean that there's anything wrong with the individual. It's just that we are all going through something stressful. And if you're in a stressful relationship situation and you have young children at home, that really ups the ante. So I would say looking for signs and symptoms can be as simple as excessive insomnia. I haven't slept the full night for a week and a half. I have no appetite, or my appetite has increased ridiculously. I have no desire to get out of bed in the morning at all on a consistent basis as this goes on. I am excessively irritable. I'm instead of reacting at a 2 when a 2 is appropriate, I'm going off the handle at a 15. Drinking excessively. I mean, it's one thing. Our culture is saturated with alcohol, wine, whatnot. But it's critically important that if you are experiencing great stress, that you really watch the substance intake, because it affects you in ways that you don't really realize until later on. So if any of these factors are evident, or if you're just concerned and just have a general feeling that you're off, I think if you have had a relationship with a mental health professional, reach out, set an appointment. It's important to get that support. And like I said, most therapists, every therapist that I know is now seeing people online. So there's no barrier to going to an office and am I going to get contaminated, because it's right there in your home.
Now, one thing I do want to talk about, because this has come up from a situation of, and this is something that certainly is not, again, new or novel with the quarantine situation and pandemic that we are dealing with. But again, everything you've talked about, and it's a situation where, where maybe there is a heightened level, again, of the anger or reactiveness, and we're, fielding calls with women in situations where there's domestic violence. And we know it goes on, more often than we'd like. Not as many women reach out for help as often, but typically they might be able to get away, have more of an ability to pacify the situation than they do now, as we've discussed. So, is that something that so those situations that you would see, or, what would you advise those women in those types of situations? Because the shelters aren't open either.
Right. Well, it's unfortunately, it is a fact that under stressful times, domestic violence spikes. And we see this during natural disasters. We see this during political upheaval. And the best thing that I can say is, if somebody is in a situation where they are being abused, is to contact Hubbard House. At this point, that is what I would suggest. And to reach out to supportive family or friends in order to find a place to go. Because yes, we're dealing with the virus. However, if you are being physically abused, and believe me, I'm not minimizing psychological or emotional abuse whatsoever. However, if someone is being physically abused, then, calling 911 is very important. It really is important.
I thank you for saying that, because it is, because the police are still working, they are out there.
Yeah.
Despite the changes that are going on, and the courts are open. That's what I have been, trying to explain to everyone, that.
Aren't they going to a lot of Zoom for ex parte hearings? And
yes, we are doing Zoom and telephonic, and they are, they may be modified, but they're doing domestic violence injunction hearings, and those injunctions can still be filed. Yeah. Everything can still be filed with the court. And things that may have been easier to go do yourself, because you could, as an individual, walk into the courthouse and do it. That's what is going to be different. That's why we've really, expressed to clients and women, you may not be able to go do that yourself. I just, because I haven't been to the courthouse physically, I don't know how they're handling that, but I know we can do it, because we can certainly do things electronically.
Yeah.
And that, those, as I think we will see a spike, and it could escalate so much faster, I think, because of the extreme conditions people are under.
Yeah.
Safety is so important. And
I know a lot of times victims of domestic violence, which are, mostly women, but there are men who experience domestic violence as well. Calling 911 can be the hardest thing in the world, but it can also be the most important thing to do to protect yourself. And ultimately, I want to propose this. I know this may sound crazy. However, it is the kind thing to do for the abuser as well, because this is somebody who needs to be removed from the situation and who needs to get help. So that's one way.
I think right now, this is not official, but you're right. I think you are doing everyone a favor, because by bringing in the police, it can really de-escalate the situation and separate the parties. And I don't think it means necessarily they're going to jail right now, because of the situation, unless it is to the level that they have to. And so therefore, I know that keeps a lot of women from calling, a lot of people in general, but that to the extent that I think it will do more good than harm and can potentially save lives.
Yeah.
I do think, without being over dramatic, the
Yeah, if there are
situation we're
children
in.
involved, you're setting an example for the children that it's okay to be abused. And that's just something, it's definitely not something to guilt anyone with, but it's something
Right.
to ponder, which is, okay, what is in the best interest of our family? And is it allowing this to continue, or is it saying, no, this is going to stop? Now, I would also say, if someone is wondering, is this really abuse? It's not that bad. He just pushed me. That wasn't that bad. Reach out to a mental health professional and bounce it off of them, because a lot of the times, and this is not unique to domestic violence victims and survivors, we all need sounding boards. Sometimes we can't see the forest for the trees when we're in the midst of it, especially when we're stressed out. Again, if we're in our lizard brain and we're only seeing a couple of, sorry about the hands, a couple of options, it's really hard to see the nuance or realize, oh, wow. And it's only in retrospect that you can look back and go, that was bad. How did that go on for so long? Has nothing to do with being intelligent. Very, very, very intelligent people are victims of domestic violence, and it's nothing to be ashamed of. That's what keeps a lot of people from calling as well, is the shame of how could I have let this happen? So, yeah.
Exactly. Now, I would love also to explore some, just in a little bit more depth, for folks who deal with anxiety on, in our normal lives, like we said, 4 weeks ago, they tended to, situations that may not rattle, other individuals, cause more anxiety. Either they coped normally or had medication. What could be some things we would want those women to look out for that may now change, that we're not at our prior normal, new normal?
Yeah, our new normal, and I'm getting really tired of that phrase.
I know.
But it's realistic, and that's the thing.
Right.
Our new normal, all of our routines have been shattered. They just have. Even if you're a stay-at-home parent, well, your kids are home now. So everything is different, and our brains do not pivot as quickly as all of this information has been coming at us. It seems like our reality is changing, not on a daily basis, but on almost an hourly basis of what is possible. And so the routines that we had, that let's use somebody who is prone to anxiety. They function just fine. Of those of us on the screen, we have different ways of managing our anxiety. And through the course of life, you learn how to manage it, and maybe some medication is necessary, maybe not. But you've got your activities that you do, your places that you go, and all of a sudden, all of those resources are gone. So from a very basic level, what I'm recommending is routine is critically important right now, so that we are able to function as well as we possibly can and think as clearly as we can. So no, maybe you don't have to get up by 7 a.m., but at least get up within the realm of the regular period of time that you get up. Don't stick with the same t-shirt and yoga pants that you wore for the last 3 days. But no one's seeing me. Well, you're seeing you, and the people in your house are seeing you. So maintain some standards that cause you to stand up a little straighter and feel a little more like you're part of a civilization. That's really important. Watching what you eat is important. I'm sure, I know you and I both know about the effects that, excessive amounts of sugar and fat have on your mental cognition. You need to make sure right now under stressful periods of time that you're just being mindful of what you eat. I'm not saying don't have comfort food. I'm just saying be aware so that if you notice your mood is diving, oh wow, I did mainline Oreos last night. Maybe that's not a good choice.
Right.
A few days ago. Don't do that. And again, watching the alcohol consumption, getting outside. We are so lucky that we live in an area where we have good weather. We can get outside, social distancing, of course, but just we are physical beings, and just moving through the physical earth in our physical bodies and noticing that, being mindful. Walk barefoot in the grass. It helps physiologically bring you down. Focusing on your breathing. I mean, what therapist doesn't talk about breathing? But it's for a reason. It really is for a reason. Notice your breathing throughout the day. Am I breathing up here? Okay, I need to put it down. If you have a meditation practice, and by meditation practice, I mean just taking a few minutes to breathe, not zenning out on a cushion. It's more important than ever to be doing that.
I'm so glad you said that. I love walking barefoot in the grass, like grounding yourself and getting back to nature, even if you're already, spending so much time inside, and of course, exercise, all of those things. I agree. And routine for those women who have children who are at home, and that goes across the spectrum, because now all the college kids are home, as well as the younger. Some people can. I know some families have. They're like, oh my gosh, this is a lot of us now at home. But if you could just weigh in a bit on how important it is for us as the parent or as the mom, leading and setting that example for your children, for you to have the routine, to not, wear the same clothes every day or stay in bed, like how that will affect your children so much more positively if you do.
Yes, I have a friend and colleague who has, she posted something yesterday and said, stop calling this homeschooling. This is Band-Aid school. That's what we're doing. It's Band-Aid school. And I could not agree with her more. Yes, academics are so important. I'm a self-professed nerd here. However, the real important thing, and the opportunity, I want to say the opportunity, not the burden that's going on right now. You have a captive audience with your children. And even if you don't think they're watching you or listening to you, they are watching everything you do. And that is not to put pressure on you. What it is to say, okay, there is a reason for me to get up, get dressed, make my bed, make sure the kitchen is cleaned up. Because they're watching, even if they're complaining about it, they're watching and they're learning how to navigate stress in their life now and later. And in 10 years, they're not going to remember if they finish that project for their English class, but they are going to remember what it was like in the home. And again, I say that knowing full well that there are families where the situation is far from ideal. So I do not say this out of guilt at all. I'm just saying it's a little bit more motivation to realize, okay, my children are watching this. And also modeling, saying I'm sorry when you not if, when you mess up. And oh man, yeah, I think I need to take a walk around the block. I'm sorry. That was a 15, that needed a 2. I'll be back in 15 minutes. I just need to take a breather. And that's modeling a healthy behavior as well. Not that mom
and I think that's
answers.
Such great advice, because I've spent not a ton of time, but I do, read the actual orders that are coming out and review the CDC guidelines rather than watch the news. I'm
Yeah.
going to the source and really understanding what, is being advised and things like that. And, within the essential, when they were talking about, essential activities in Florida, that just came out and what that is in essential businesses, that there are essential recreational activities. So despite, or it's encouraged that, you can still be out biking, out walking, hiking, you can be outside.
Yes.
And that is listed in those executive orders. And there's quite a bit of recreation that is still allowed. And I would say encourage it.
Yeah.
Because like you said, you have to get away, get some space, get some fresh air, to help maybe, bring things back into perspective.
Yeah, and moving your body is important because it releases endorphins,
Mhm.
and endorphins help increase your mood. And it doesn't mean you need to start, training for a marathon, but just go walk around the block. And if you have a yoga practice, please do it. If you've ever thought about taking up a yoga practice, this might be a good time to start.
Well, and the beautiful thing is there are so many resources being just broadcast live, free, or recorded. Like I know even the Peloton has like an app with all these free classes. I'm a big
And you don't have to have the Peloton to access them,
you
right?
don't, that's true.
Yeah.
And Lululemon even has all these classes that they're streaming.
Yeah.
So I see many companies, many things adapting. And so the resources are there. All we have to do is go use them, easier said than done. But like you said, even a 10-minute something to kind of get yourself out of your head a little bit, potentially.
Yeah, getting yourself out of your head. And like you were mentioning about getting news from the actual source, don't get caught up. If you've got someone on your Facebook feed that's just putting out hysteria every 2 hours, you can, that unfollow button, it's your friend. They won't know.
I think we will all use that more often. We should, because or even snooze them for 30 days. Sometimes I do that. I just, you know what? I can't watch this anymore. I'm going to snooze this person.
And I want to bring up one other thing, because my approach to therapy, I mean, I'm a straight up mental health counselor, and I also have a background in well, it's spiritually integrative therapy. And the way I view it is the way the spiritually integrated therapist views things is spirituality is an aspect of our personality. There's five factors of personality that we all have. Openness, neuroticism, introversion, extroversion. There are 5 factors. And to use the introversion extroversion model, we're all on that continuum. Some of us not, it's a bell curve. So you've got some people who are extreme extroverts, some are extreme introverts. Most of us are somewhere in the middle. This it's proposed in the research, in the literature, that spirituality is a 6th aspect of our personality. And this has nothing to do with religion per se. And some people are seeing angels everywhere. Some people are, most of us are somewhere in between. Right. So my approach to therapy is incorporating client spirituality. So meaning, let's say, we live in North Florida, and the majority of people here self-identify as Christian. So let's say you are a spiritual and religious person. Well, are there things in your faith tradition that do feed you, that give you hope? Because the thing that is going to get us through this and get us through this in a good position, not barely made it through, and now I'm going to need to be in therapy for the next 5 years, is establishing, where am I finding hope? Where can I make meaning out of what we're going through over time? And if somebody has a faith tradition that has spiritual disciplines that they have been practicing or they want to increase, I recommend that they look into that and do that. I just speaking from my perspective, I was born and raised in the Episcopal Church, and praying the daily office is something that I've been doing. And that's providing two things for me. It's adding structure to my day. I know what I'm doing at different times. And it also is helping me tap into my personal faith and my personal belief, which is helping keep me functioning well. And I don't say that. I like to tell my clients, look, even if you are Christian and I'm Christian, my goal is not to try to turn you into a good Episcopalian or Presbyterian. We're working with your theology.
Right.
And if somebody is spiritual but not religious, well, how do you tap into your belief in something bigger than yourself? What works for you, not for me, because the only person that knows that is that individual. And that is a strength. So, and the way I look at wellness is in a very integrated way. We have physical wellness, mental wellness, and spiritual wellness, but it's all balled up in one big ball of yarn. And if you pull on one string, you're going to get into the other. So psychological crisis and spiritual crisis dovetail, and the physical aspect is right in there. You can't drink heavily, but go on a lot of walks and think that that's going to balance it out. And your environment, which we are all under, many more than others, we're all under a condition where we can't really control much of our environment. We're stuck.
Right.
Yeah.
And then, well, Elizabeth, that's been amazing. I wrote, underlined, and starred what you said as far as what gives you hope. And I think that is important for every one of us just to ask every day, because it is so different, but to anchor onto that and know that that is what will sustain us to keep.
And it's interesting you just said anchor, because I don't know if you're aware, the anchor is actually the ancient symbol of hope.
I didn't, but I must have been
right
in.
Yeah.
But I so appreciate this conversation, and I know there are so many women out there who I'm hoping are going to get as much out of it. And what if, for the first time, there is a woman out there, and they know they need some type of help for themselves or their significant other, in the mental health range, but they don't have a relationship with a therapist.
Yeah.
And whether, I won't even get into the whole insurance part, but
right.
What you recommend they do, at least as a first step, to try to get to someone where they could have this conversation, either by Skype or Zoom? What would you advise them to do?
Well, there are a number of options. There is Psychology Today is a good resource where many therapists advertise in Psychology Today. And if you go on the website, there are filters where you can determine who's in my area, what insurance do they take, et cetera, et cetera. So that's one way to go about it. Another way, just very basic, is asking around, asking friends who may have seen a therapist. And, there can be a stigma around, mental health. Ooh, it means something's wrong with me. What will people think? Oh, come on. Everyone's gone through stuff. Exactly, then again, that's obviously, I'm a therapist. That's what I'm going to say. But, I see people online. There are many resources in the Jacksonville area that are available. And word of mouth can be a really good thing. It really can. And, I always tell clients when they come to see me for the first time, and, I joke around, I've got a sense of humor. I'll say, fit is really important, because when you're in a therapy situation, you're bearing a lot of stuff. And if you don't feel comfortable or confident, or just something feels off with the person you're talking to for whatever reason, it's not a good fit. And let's find you someone who is a good fit. And they, nod. Okay, yes. And I'll say, no, really. If you don't like my shoes, That's enough reason. And they laugh and say, no, I'm serious. Because it is important that that comes across, that it's no harm, no foul. You won't hurt the person's feelings. But finding a good fit is important.
Right. Well, and Elizabeth, you meet with individuals as well as couples.
I do individuals, couples, and families.
Wonderful. So we'll make sure that, of course, your information is available for anybody watching this and who, is like, oh, I think I could connect with her and I need to talk to somebody, so that they have that. And again, I really appreciate your insight and input today, because I know we're all feeling it, and it's just a question of what degree, and that there are so many, despite the way we kind of feel. So we are quarantined, we feel quarantined, and without options, there still are. There's therapists out there who can help you. That if there needs to be legal action, the courts are still open. We are still helping people, get their loved ones into treatment for mental health,
Mhm.
through court order, or for substance abuse through court order, or again, domestic violence. There are options.
Yeah.
And it's not a one size fit all. There's lots of different things that, we can and can't do. But I think that, again, it gives them hope.
Yeah.
I hope it does give some of our viewers hope that there are answers out there. We may not have them all, but one of the beauty of things about all of this is, as professionals, we know who to call and we know who to reach out to. This person is available and can more likely than not help you get where you need to be.
Mhm.
And
Yeah,
I
I think one thing that this crisis is bringing to the forefront is just the importance of recognizing we are all in this together. We really are. And the more we each reach out one to another,
Mhm.
and the more we can help one another, that's what's going to that's what's going to sustain us through this. And that's what's going to, in my belief, in my hope, that's what's going to make us better coming out of this. And that gives me hope. That gives me a lot of hope.
And I agree with you, and I have hope that, and I do believe that, one, we are going to come out of this with new ways to do things that we never really had to do, and that the forced, distancing and everything is going to, I think, help us recognize how much we enjoy, interactions with other individuals versus just, stalking someone on social media or lurking around. Like, no, we like to have conversation.
Right.
Engage with people, and that we're going to learn better, more efficient ways to do businesses. Again, telemedicine, different ways for people to, where maybe there were certain barriers before. And, it's allowing us, from my perspective, in a lot of ways, to see how my children are learning, and provide them with new experiences as well, because they're home, and, they're not gone 8 hours a day in that
Having conversations instead of just dropping off.
Exactly.
And yeah.
Mm-hmm. And looking at what they're learning and what they're learning about this. Like you said, this is going to be in history books. This is, just this new experience for all of us, and to get everybody's different perspective on how it's affecting them all. And I do think so. I think it'll be an interesting evolution of how things, go back, and what we experience. But I think the most important is we stay as connected as we can, and keep hope.
Yeah. Stay connected, keep hope, and realizing it's okay to both say, this sucks on the one hand, and then at the same time, in the same breath, being okay, but I can do these things to make it a little bit better. And this sucks. And I'm going to go for a run at the same time. So and it's tiring. It is tiring.
It
Yeah.
is. So Elizabeth, thank you so much. I know this was our live broadcast this morning. It will be replayed later. I know Hillary will close this up and make sure that, everyone's information is provided. So if you're watching this again today, you can reach out to, Florida Women's Law Group, ask us any questions, as well as Elizabeth.
All right. Thanks for having me. I enjoyed the conversation.
Thank you so much. It was wonderful.
Okay. Take care.
Yes.
Thank you everyone who was able to listen into our first Family Law Fridays webinar. If there's a topic you'd like addressed or a question you'd like answered, please call, email, or send us a Facebook message, and it could be addressed in an upcoming video. We hope you found the information helpful. Of course, we're always available by phone, 904-241-0012. Thank you again for joining us today.